Pale Court is an amazing fan expansion. Not only what? How? Not only does it manage to integrate itself into Hollow Knight. Oh, come on! What was I supposed to do there? You know what? Screw it. I'm Holland, and this is Behind the Boss. Alright, so I was gonna spend this whole video talking about Pale Court, but I realized that I just had too much to say about each boss. Yeah, go figure. So instead, I'm talking about Hegemol. Why? Well, because he is the most frustrating boss I have fought in a long time. Up until I first beat Hegemol, which took me like 30 damn tries, I started to rack up a bunch of complaints like the crybaby I am. And once I finally beat the boss and went into Godhome, I, for some reason, decided that I had to beat the boss on Radiant. And during those 5 to 6 hours it took me to finally Radiant this boss, I found out two things. Firstly, most of the complaints I originally had could be mitigated in some way, however tedious or nonsensical. And secondly, other problems began appearing that I still to this day think are absolutely inexcusable. So you can call me a whiny complainer all you want, but only if you can actually tell me how I'm supposed to survive this situation. It's fine. I'll wait. Last thing before we get into it, if you're new around here, this week I'll be uploading every day for 7 days straight. All Hollow Knight content that I've worked hard on and which I'm really excited to bring you. Tomorrow is the final day of this thrilling experiment, and I'll be releasing a video that many of you have been anticipating. And yes, it may have something to do with charms. But to see that video, you have to be subscribed. And it will magically appear in your subscription feed as soon as it comes out, so you don't have to be afraid of missing it. Thank you so much for the support. Now back to Hegemol. First up, let's talk about why Hegemol the Mighty, this lovely fellow, the king's right hand, protector of the capital, hates new players. There are a few reasons, but they can all pretty much be summed up in this one sentence. Good luck figuring out where to stand. Okay, so you're positioning yourself in front of Hegemol to strike him with your nail. Perfectly reasonable, is what you think, you noob. Now Hegemol is charging right at you. What will you do? Well, nothing, because you're dead. Sure, the attack is telegraphed, but unless you're lightning fast, there's no way you're making it above him in time. Okay, so don't stay near the ground. That's bad. What do we do then? Stay in the air, of course. Well, no, you don't, because Hegemol can summon rocks in the air to instantly kill you. Again, you absolute noob. Alright, so you're not supposed to be in the air, or on the ground, or too far away from the boss lest he pulls some rad shenanigans off screen and gets you randomly killed. So where are you supposed to be? Who knows? Intuitively, there is no answer, and that's a problem for easing the player into this very overwhelming fight. As I tried to grasp how I was supposed to tackle the encounter, more and more issues started to emerge. Surprisingly, most of Hegemol's problems don't come from a lack of telegraphing. He actually does telegraph most of his attacks pretty well. Rather, they come from a lack of intuition. It was so hard to understand how to respond to some of Hegemol's attacks when learning to fight him. Why can he sometimes just turn around and run into you with no telegraph? Well, it's because he runs multiple times across the arena based on the phase you're in. Totally predictable if you know how he functions, but impossible if you don't, meaning you're gonna feel totally cheated until you finally infer this idiosyncrasy. I have more examples, but we'll get to those later. For now, let me just assure you that clawing my way to that first victory was a long and grueling experience. And for his criminal levels of unintuitiveness, Hegemol earns a 3 out of 3 score on vague mechanics. You don't know what this is? Well, it's Hegemol's evil card, of course. For a boss to be well designed, they have to score as low as possible on each of the 4 scales. So, not looking good for Hegemol so far. After a tiresome grind, I had finally managed to defeat Hegemol for the first time. During this period, I had learned a few simple rules of the fight. Never position yourself above Hegemol, as he is in fact influenced by the repositioning problem. Never carelessly dash through the floor-to-ceiling shockwave, or Hegemol may jump into you with no indication. Always be ready to jump over the boss at any time if he decides to charge. Keep in mind how many times Hegemol is going to charge based on the current phase. Be mindful of this absolutely ridiculous fake out jump slam that breaks conventional rules of when shockwaves can be created. Never be too high up in the air or you might get hit by debris with no chance to react. And be super observant when Hegemol performs a telegraph, as a lot of them look almost identical but lead to completely different attacks. I didn't find those lessons very easy to learn, but in Hegemol's defense, at least they were learnable. Now here's something crazy. Once I started attempting to beat Hegemol on Ascended, and Radiant thereafter, I actually started to enjoy the fight. Having learned how to respond to each of Hegemol's attacks made him a lot more pleasant to go against. And for a brief time, I thought I might have gone a little too hard on him. In fact, Hegemol scores only 1 out of 3 on inactive gameplay, given how often you can hit him during the fight. A close to perfect score. But then something happened. I started losing. A lot. Again and again. And each time I grew more wary. I thought I had learned how to responsibly prepare for each of Hegemol's attacks and respond accordingly. Well, apparently not, because there was one element of the fight that I had not accounted for. One sneaky little detail that made Hegemol one of the most frustrating bosses to defeat on Radiant. The barrels. Oh yes, the barrels. At times during the fight, barrels will randomly fall from the ceiling. But due to how tightly balanced each of Hegemol's attacks are, where the barrels fall is very crucial. You wanna see unlucky barrel RNG? Well, I'll play some for you now. Look at this clip. What am I supposed to do? Well, take the loss, I suppose. Not very fun. Barrel RNG ended many of my runs and forced me to act in completely absurd ways in response to Hegemol's attacks. For example, by having to dash through this attack to avoid getting hit by random barrels. By far the most absurd example of how much control Barrel RNG has over the fight is this attack, the floor to ceiling shockwave. I previously mentioned how you have to be extremely careful not to dash into Hegemol when going through the shockwave with your shade cloak, which means you have to dash through the top part of the shockwave. Except if you do that, you're at the mercy of Barrel RNG. This ended so many of my runs, and my goodness was it frustrating. And after a certain number of failed attempts, I simply came to the conclusion that using the Shade Cloak here to counter this attack, which clearly warrants it, was the wrong move. It's so absurd, it's so unintuitive, but if you really don't want any chance of RNG screwing up your run, I'm convinced that you have to counter this attack with the invulnerability frames you get from casting Desolate Dive. Still, regardless, even this absolute insanity was able to be countered by jumping through enough hoops. I didn't like it at the time, and I still think it's way too unintuitive and random to be considered good design, but at least it can be countered. However, that's only true in this specific instance. There were many times when I lost to RNG barrels in situations that felt completely out of my control. Those damn barrels, man. Damn those barrels all the way to heck. Erratic outcomes, 3 out of 3. This fight is terribly influenced by luck, some of which I haven't even gotten to yet. Lackluster telegraphing, 2 out of 3. Mostly because of the barrels, which don't have a tell, but also due to poor telegraphing on the charge and the jump. This earns Hegemol a 75% evil score. Damn, that's like Grey Prince Sword levels of malevolence. I wanted to defeat Hegemol on Radiant for this video. I wanted to see whether I could figure him out, whether I could crack the code to make the fight more consistent, almost devoid of RNG. I didn't want to use the custom charms added by the mod because I'd heard how powerful they were, and it kind of felt like cheating. And so finally, after hours of testing, I had come up with the perfect build. That's it. Playtime's over, buddy. Strength, Quick Slash, Shaman Stone, and the pièce de résistance, Sharp Shadow. Here's the strategy. Step 1. Start by hitting Hegemol once, then immediately dash through him to counter the self-inflicted knockback, allowing you to keep wailing on him throughout the entire intro sequence. This works wonders because the game doesn't expect you to make it through Hegemol, so he'll miss you when he slams in the wrong direction. All the soul we're gathering here is also crucially important to the strategy, so keep that in mind. Step 2. As soon as Hegemol indicates that he wants to charge, get above him with 2 downward slashes, and then, before he can hit you with that juicy repositioning problem, counter with Desolate Dive. Now follow this cycle. Dash to the right, escaping Hegemol's hitbox. Get above him before the invulnerability runs out, preferably hitting him 2 times in the process. If you timed this correctly, he will always be charging and therefore safe to hit from above. Make a bit of distance from the wall to give yourself some space, then cast Desolate Dive again and repeat until you reach a stagger. Step 3. Once Hegemol staggers, hit him until he jumps, then position yourself to perfectly dash next to him, landing 2 more blows before disengaging with a second dash. Keep in mind that Sharp Shadow's increased dash length may force you to move slightly away from the boss before dashing toward him. Step 4. Fight the urge to stay clawed to the wall, since even though this is mostly safe, you can get screwed by barrel RNG. Instead, simply leap over the shockwaves and navigate slightly to the left while jumping to increase your air time. You want to be on the ground as soon as possible, so single jumps are preferable to double jumps, but use them if you need to stabilize your position right as you enter the phase. Step 5. Now you're in phase 2 and you've got a new problem to deal with. When pinning yourself against the wall in phase 1, you were forcing Hegemol to only use the charge. We still want him to only use the charge, but he can now choose to perform the ground slam instead. Pray for the charge, and whenever you don't get it, use Desolate Dive to dodge the shockwave. Do not dash through it, as barrel RNG will get the best of you. Keep Hegemol pinned to the wall as much as you can. You want him to always charge to the right, never to the left. If you mess up your positioning, he'll run to the left and you'll have to stay to the right of the arena until you can bait him to return. Keep in mind that you have to place yourself to the right of Hegemol's middle position as soon as he's ready to perform a new attack, or he'll either use the wrong attack or charge to the left. You can see me screwing this up here in the clip, being just a bit too much to the left when Hegemol finishes his attack, allowing him to use dig instead of charge or ground slam. Very dangerous. Repeat until he staggers again, then punish him during the stagger as before. Step 6. Keep going, you almost got it. Hegemol has a lot of health in this phase, but he also charges a total of 3 times. Keep baiting him into the wall by always being just a bit more to the right than he is, then using Desolate Dive at the end of the 3rd charge. Every time he charges, you should feel a wave of relief. We only want to see the charge, and for ground slam disruptions to be resolved as quickly as possible. Keep going until he staggers, and there you go. You got him. Hegemol on Radiant. I have a confession to make. Not only did I actually, surprisingly, keep my cool throughout the roughly 6 hours it took me to beat Hegemol on Radiant. 6 hours in a row, mind you. But I actually loved playing the match where I finally achieved victory. All the strategy and little techniques that went into finally overcoming him and achieving that impossible victory was really special. Don't get me wrong, I do not like Hegemol, but I also feel this very strange love for him. I made an attempt to write down why in my notes, but as I'm sitting here trying to put that strange feeling of love into words, I can't. And even if I could, I'm not sure I'd tell you. Go beat Hegemol on Radiant for yourself and let me know how you feel afterwards. Maybe then we can talk. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the big video tomorrow. Since you made it this far, I'll give you a little teaser because I know it's only the 5 most loyal of you who actually watch all the way to the end. The video tomorrow will be about Pale Court. And maybe, just maybe, it'll also be about charms. But until then, I hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.